All right. Well, hello, everyone. For those who are just now joining us from wherever in the world, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. We are delighted to have this conversation about the power of the Schwarzman Scholars Alumni Network. And just for some context on the viewees, we see over 70 different nations represented in those who have registered for the program. We see a good mix of different prospective students, both currently enrolled, about 40% of our viewees, about 50% are young professionals, and the other 10% of our viewees are coming from all different angles, from fellowship advisors, university contacts, current alumni and incoming scholars, as well as Schwarzman staff, all registered for this webinar, which for me, it suggests that it's a very important topic. And so we're delighted to be able to have this conversation centered on the power of the Schwarzman Scholars Alumni Network. And with that, I just want to go through a few housekeeping rules. You will notice that the chat is disabled. So if you are to ask a question, please look at the Q&A tab of the Zoom platform to be able to ask your questions to any of the panelists. Please note that these aren't anonymous by default. And so if you do ask a question, make sure that you ask it privately, anonymously, and then we'll be able to address that in the open Q&A. We also embrace that we will not be able to get to everyone's questions, unfortunately. So I want to direct you to the various resources on our website. So schwarzmanscholars.org. We plan to have a number of different webinars from the practice of applying, as well as learning more insights from different scholars. So I encourage you to visit our website, engage with the scholar bios, learn about what are some of the different narratives that are coming into play, and learn more of the program through the people who are participating in that. So again, my name is Christian, and on behalf of the Schwarzman admissions team, we are excited to do this latest installment of our featured spotlight series, again, centered on the power of the Schwarzman Alumni Network. And before I get started, I actually want to do a round of introductions for the amazing rock star panel that is before you. And so we'll go ahead and start off with the Director of Development and Alumni Relations, and then we'll go through our scholars in graduation order. So kick it off, Debbie.
Hello, I'm Debbie Goldberg. I am the Director of Development and Alumni and have been with Schwarzman Scholars for almost 5 years. And it's been extraordinary to watch as the program has grown and importantly, as the community has grown. And over the next hour, you will hear from 4 extraordinary alums who've had a chance to participate in all aspects of the program. So we feel very lucky, and you will too after you hear from them. So thanks for coming today.
Terrific. And we'll start off with Danai.
Hi, everyone. I'm Danai, and I'm from the inaugural class. I graduated in 2017, and I'm from Zimbabwe, but I'm currently living in Mauritius and have been staying here since I graduated from Schwarzman. I'm currently working at the African Leadership University as the Director of Strategic Operations. In my role, I focus on leading programs and projects that are strategic for the organization. So currently I am building our very first financial aid office as we seek to scale our recruitment and enrollment numbers. So excited to chat to you all and share my experience.
Terrific. Erza.
Hi everyone, my name is Erza Aliyev. I'm from Azerbaijan. I hope you're all staying safe, and greetings from London. I'm originally from Azerbaijan and lived in 9 countries before moving to the UK after Schwarzman Scholars Program. Used to be in diplomacy, in banking, and now I work for BP, doing finance in energy and particularly investing in West Africa.
Terrific. So from the class of 2017 to 2018, we have Maddie.
Hi everyone, my name is Maddie Bauer. I graduated in the class of 2018, so I was in the 2nd cohort. I'm from the United States. I live in New York, but I'm currently home in Boston during these times. And I work at the National Committee on U.S.-China Relations, and will be attending law school in the fall.
Amazing. And then the baby of the alumni group from 2019, Minh.
Hi everyone, my name is Minh. I'm the class of 2019, graduated last year, and I'm a Chinese scholar, and I studied public health in the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill in the US. After that, I did some consulting and then did some startup job on the West Coast, and then I moved back to China for the Schwarzman program. And ever since then, I have been working with the venture capital as an entrepreneur in residence program, looking at different various initiatives. And most currently, we're looking at how we can best kind of bridge the demand and supply of the most essential PPEs and most needed ventilators for the COVID virus. I hope everyone stays healthy and stays strong in the middle of this pandemic.
Terrific, thanks so much. And as you can already tell from the curated group that we have here, that we really want to think about maximizing the experiences and the diversity and the power of this alumni network. And so what you see is a geographic, demographic, and professional variance within this small sample size of 4 of scholars who are here. So we're really excited to, again, be able to have this conversation. So for our overview for today, we'll have a welcome and some thoughts that Debbie will share on the vision of this program. I'm going to go through a nutshell version of our slide deck to get everyone up to speed to what the program's offerings are. But again, I'm going to leave all the nuts and bolts to the website and to other webinars. And then we'll jump into the alumni remarks, which is the core of our conversation. And then we'll have open Q&A. So again, if you are thinking about questions, please submit those. We know that some of you who have registered have already submitted questions, so we'll jump into those when we get the chance. So again, my job is to make sure that things are flowing. So again, thanks so much. And I'll turn it over to Debbie to talk about the founding mission of Schwarzman Scholars.
Well, as I said, it is a pleasure to be here. And one of the elements of Steve Schwarzman's vision when he thought about Schwarzman Scholars was bringing people from around the world together to have a better understanding of China and to build a network. And so he couldn't be more proud of what we have built, even with only 3 classes of alumni so far, totaling 367. We know who the alumni are, we engage with them directly, and they bring joy to all of us in the program as we see their development professionally and through life. The community itself is engaged and committed to making sure that the community stays strong, and the 4 alums who are on the call today are great examples of that. But in the world, after they graduate, there is there's an understanding that they're eager to meet each other, they are eager to mentor each other, and they're eager to be a model for people who are thinking about lives, careers, cities, experiences. And we have seen that broadly and deeply. One of the ways that we bring the alumni together online, given the global nature of the community, is through a platform that we've built online. And so it lets people tell us where they are, what they're doing. You can let us know when you're going on a trip somewhere and connect with other Schwarzman alumni. It is a really great tool, and it is widely used. We're really happy to see that going on. With regard to programming, our goal is to keep alumni connected to each other, to China, and to Schwarzman Scholars. And we feel like we're moving along that path rather well. We're also committed to lifelong learning, so that is involving academic programming that we do in partnership with the National Committee on U.S.-China Relations and Rhodes House, among others. And we also have an ethos of service, and we really encourage our different communities to organize, to give back to where they live, no matter where that might be. And there's a program we developed called Schwarzman Scholars Serve, which, among others, Minh led a project that I hope he'll talk about in Beijing last year. One of the really important parts of our engagement with alumni is that at the end of every scholar year, they elect alumni representatives who work with us closely to help define our programming. They gather feedback from the community at large and help direct our activities and our investments. And we're lucky today that 3 of our speakers, Erza, Maddie, and Minh, all are alumni representatives, and they work on program engagement. So right now there's a project going on directly with the admissions team, and this is one of the outcomes. We have a group that focuses on programming, so what activities can we do in the hub cities and more broadly. And then communications, what tools can we create? How can we stay in touch so that the community knows what we're doing and how they can engage? So in all, it is strong, it's extraordinary, and now I'm just gonna throw it to them because they're gonna be able to tell you greater detail. Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you so much, Debbie. And again, we're really excited to again bring the alumni scholars back to reflect on their experiences. Before we get to that, I'm going to give you the nutshell version of this program because I think a lot of people probably have engaged with us through learning more about the program. But what you see here on the slide are all these different levers that we introduce into the program so that people can, one, individualize their experience of these 11 months spent at Tsinghua University. The founding mission, as you heard, is being able to prepare our leaders to serve in a world in which China is playing a key role. And so we do that anchored to a master's degree in global affairs. We do that by introducing you to language, making sure that you have a culminating project at the end of the year, bringing luminaries to speak to you, providing you a mentor to soundboard with you, deep dive travel tours so that you can get a different reference point outside of Beijing, these internships, and then more importantly, the core of what we're talking about is the alumni, the people, the perspectives that you get to belong to as a result of this whole program. So again, I think one of our scholars in a previous webinar said it's about the ownership. Amy Sturzberg, our executive director, says every decision that you make, from the internship, the deep dive, the electives that you take are a leadership decision. And so these are all different ways and exercises for you to really craft what is your leadership narrative through this program and beyond. It's worth mentioning that this is a comprehensive scholarship. So the reason why over 100 donors, including our founder, Steve Schwarzman, commit to this mission is they recognize that dangerous gap of knowledge, network, and skills, and missing the China piece. And so that's part of the reason why they make sure to select from the best of the best. And the other thing that they agree on is that it's not limited to someone's circumstance that they're born into, that leadership is not tied to the ways in which you have to, your ability to afford a year in Beijing. And because of that, I think their generosity of making sure that this program is able and is attainable by a range of different perspectives is an important factor of our mission for the program. Now, like I said earlier, I'm not going to get into the nuts and bolts of the application process. What you'll see here are the basic requirements as well as the application components. It's not a huge departure from other graduate level programs. So what you will expect is writing samples, letters of recommendation, transcripts, etc. But these are all ways for you to distill down what is who you are and what you stand for. And so the slide that I actually want to spend more time as a launch pad into our conversation about alumni is what we look for. So it distills down to these three things. Leadership, as we define it in a demonstrated way, is not necessarily something that is a cookie cutter version. We're looking at different ways to think about leadership, multicultural forms of leadership, leadership that's successful in different industries and different sectors. And those mental models that you use to lead are informed by where you grew up, what you studied, who your parents are, what they do, who your friends are, the network that you're associated with. And so we're trying to understand leadership as it is a place where you've grown, where you were vulnerable, where you failed, but then you got back up to really make a difference and make a change for a community, a purpose, or an initiative that's important to you. For intellect, we're not looking for a GPA or a test score that defines what intellect looks like, but how do you look at things in different ways? How do you use scholarship and evaluation to make data-driven decision-making that isn't just based on anecdotes, but it's how you're able to engage and have that case for curiosity to learn more about the world. And that's what we mean and define by intellect. And in terms of character, it's not just a laundry list of adjectives that we want in every single scholar. When it comes to strength of character, it's understanding what are my values? Who are the communities that I show up for? And what are the different ways in which that character is going to be tested and resilient amid resistance and challenges, change, uncertainty. So we are wanting to make sure that there's a strong sense of character. Now, all these words mean everything and nothing at the same time, but it's about defining it for yourself. It's not a question of what version are you looking for, because if that means that you change your narrative to fit that, then that's not who we're looking for. So it's a huge degree of self-awareness, and it's also someone who is able to make sure that they show through a curated conversation on how they're changing their company, their country, their communities, their culture. So those are the things that we're looking for when it comes down to a Schwarzman scholar. And a brief timeline, know that there are two different processes that work for the admissions office. So we have a process for Chinese applicants that come from mainland China, Hong Kong, Macau, and Taiwan. That deadline is in May, towards May 20th. And then for global applicants from the United States and other countries, you'll be applying from now in April to September 22nd will be the deadline. But you can see all those information on the website. There are two phases of the process, a paper phase, but then the in-person interview where those who have that strong sense of leadership, intellect, and character will then be invited for an in-person interview that happens either in late June for Chinese interviews or October, November for the US Global Pool. And then we'll announce our pool in November, with the scholars in November, they'll get notified and then publicly announce it in December. This is a timeline that we've had multiple years to play with, and we think that it's the one that is going to stick moving forward. So know that given the eligibility range between 18 and 28, you don't have to apply right away. There's not a huge urgency. Think about when is best to apply. Think about when my leadership is most competitive. And you're never late unless you're 28. So for more information, learn more through schwarzmanscholars.org. And as you can see, our contact information for you to reach out to the admissions team at admissions@schwarzmanscholars.org. And also our various social media handles, which we will be profiling every element from for the entire program and the entire network. Know that there is a mission control behind the scenes. So although you see 6 people on the screen, we've got so many people in all different layers who are really contributing to this mission and to this thing that we're trying to do is to change the world by making sure that we're defined by how we positively and effectively engage with China. We think that's what defines leaders in the 21st century. And so with that bit, and hopefully, yep, I'm right on time, we're going to invite our scholars to be able to reflect on their experiences because they are the creme de la creme of this conversation. And so what's going to happen is we're going to invite our alumni to speak on a few angles that were really important to their experience and their being an alumnus of the network. And then we'll go into some questions that were submitted from the community of viewers who are here, and then we'll go into open Q&A. So again, a reminder that if you do have any questions, feel free to chat that into the Q&A box. But we'll actually kick it off with Maddie from the 2018 class to give us the landscape of our conversation today. So go ahead, Maddie.
Sure. And so Kristen, as you were talking, it kind of made me reflect a little bit on, I guess it was 3 or 4 years ago when I was
You're still there.
oh, sorry. I looked like it just clicked out. I got really scared for a minute. So when you were talking, it really made me reflect on kind of my experience going through the application process and what I was really focused on. And for me, that was, thinking about what happens in the 11 months. And even I think during the year, I kind of had that feeling that this is a year-long program, and then I'll leave it and I'll leave that experience, and I might stay connected, but to what extent I wasn't really sure. And I remember that day walking out of the college and something felt a little bit final about it, but that was that feeling I think lasted for 2 or 3 weeks. And in early August, the New York team organizes a reception for New York alumni where to welcome the class coming back, to send off the class going to China. And I was shocked because not only was I seeing faces that kind of I wasn't expecting to see, but I was also meeting alumni from the first cohort who had already been living this Schwarzman alumni life for a year and seemed so well connected. And I realized that, the year doesn't end, but the alumni community starts when you leave those doors of Schwarzman College in July. And that was a really powerful realization for me, kind of the potential that, this is longer than a year-long program. And so today I just want to touch a little bit and pick up some of the things that Debbie said to talk about my experience with them, and also just touch, I think, on the both formal and informal aspects of the alumni programming, because they're both incredibly robust. So I'll start, I think, with the informal, and I think that's just the fact that when Schwarzman alumni are together in a city, online, they want to talk together and they want to be together, and they want to interact and socialize. And we've really seen that, I think, in the hub cities that have emerged. And so there's the clear hub cities like New York, San Francisco, London, Hong Kong. But, as the alumni community grows, it's a really exciting time, I think, for all the alumni reps who are thinking through how we expand the programming, where we're seeing such a potential for new hub cities around the world and Schwarzman alumni around the world. We even have a map and are really excited to see as, more locations pop up, which is a really exciting thing. But in the hub cities, there's a lot of dynamic things that go on. I think the first is Schwartz houses, which are groups of Schwarzman alumni that live together. It's a very common thing. I lived with one of my best friends from the program when I graduated, and that was just an incredible way to maintain that connection and foster those relationships outside of Schwarzman College, because we're also used to living together and seeing each other every day. It almost felt too sad to say goodbye to that element. But also there are so many different events in the hub cities, whether that's just pure social, but also academic and intellectual. So, different salons with leading experts where you can come together and discuss. And at the National Committee on U.S.-China Relations, we've been able to coordinate some of those for all the alumni in New York City. So it's intellectual, it's social, it's cultural. We did the in February before we all had to start quarantining. This is early February, we're able to bring together a group of New York alumni at the Museum of Chinese in America for not only a social gathering, but also to walk around the museum. So that was just an example of a really fun, interesting activity that we all did together. But also, I think all the alumni reps on this call, in conjunction with Debbie and the other Schwarzman administration, have really been thinking of ways, how do we formalize this community? Because as it grows, it gets bigger, and we want to make sure that there's connection between everyone among the different cohorts. When I graduated, it was really fun to get to know the first cohort. It's been so rewarding to get to know the third cohort a little bit more, but obviously as it grows, that's more challenging. So one of the ways that Debbie mentioned is this online platform, which really brings in people who aren't in a hub city and can't see people in person, which is basically all of us right now in some ways, to have these interactions online. And so this is a platform for posting different events. It's also a platform for interest groups to form. Lately, there have been a lot of Zoom calls that have been facilitated catch-ups, which have been really nice, coordinated on the alumni platform. So that's been a really powerful tool. Another aspect of the more kind of formal programming is what Debbie talked about in terms of partnerships. And I can speak a little bit more to that. In my role last year at the National Committee on U.S.-China Relations, I was actually able to plan a couple of these seminars for Schwarzman alumni to come together in different parts of the world to engage in a seminar on a topical idea in the U.S.-China relationship, and China's relations with the world. And so that's how I met, I think, originally Danai and Erza. I think that those are the first times I met them. And so it's been a really incredible way to meet people, to kind of engage with different experts. And I think everyone's been shocked, just, who's come to these seminars and said, wow, like, this is incredible. It has been 40 to 50 people, all from the different cohorts, all gathered in a part of the world. For some, we did our first seminar last year on the role of technology in China and San Francisco. And for many, it was some of their first times in the United States. And so to welcome them with open arms, we went back to China last year as well. So I think seeing everyone come together has been very rewarding. And I can continue on about that, but I think those are some of the main things that have stuck out to me with the Alumni Network, and I'd be happy to talk more about it or share my experiences.
Thanks so much, Maddie. And I can feel myself get really emotional just listening on that. And if we could capture the the physical cues from everyone on the call, that everyone is smiling from ear to ear, and that it's very much what I loved about your response was that it's a co-authored mission, that it's not just about the scholars, it's about how the inputs from all different layers, from the visitors even to our mentors to the staff, really work to this mission of this world that's in a better place. So so thank you so much for launching the conversation. I'm going to turn it now to Erza to share his reflections, because since the beginning, the program has gone through a lot of different evolution phases. So take it away.
Thanks, Christian. Yeah, absolutely. I think it's transformed a lot, but at the same time, the spirit has been there, and it's very interesting. You know, well, Maddie was first house. Before the program, I've never had a flatmate in my life, and then after the program, I was so connected to one of my flatmates. I was like, oh yeah, let's live together in a new country in London, and we're sharing a flat, and with a great kind of sense of community there. And seeing the wider every year with more alumni coming and moving to London, for example, it's been really great spirit of that. But I want to touch very briefly on what Debbie has mentioned from the formal side of the alumni representation. So I think it was very good from the very beginning, from the get-go, to let alumni class, each cohort, to pick and elect 3 representatives. And one would represent American scholars, one Chinese, and one international, and kind of brought this diversity of voices, of the vision, and so on. And every year, now we have 9 alumni representatives, so 3 American representation, 3 international, 3 Chinese, and also the 3 cohorts brings this really great contribution of different also channels to go back to the cohorts, to go back to the groups, interest groups, and get the feedback or deliver some kind of a messaging. So that's been really great. Another thing which actually, from the very beginning, was amazing approachability of the Schwarzman Scholars community and the alumni. We've had a lot of cases when people would reach out to each other before starting some startup. I have regular catch-ups with different alumni talking about or getting feedback or running ideas by them. We have some Schwarzman Scholars alums who invested in each other's startups and referred and got jobs and so on. So I think it's a really good and strong connection over there. And one of the greatest things was to see, I've been fairly active in attending different conferences, as all are. And every year have a number of the Schwarzman Scholars or alumni getting together, you know, opening doors to different gatherings and events. For example, there was a great experience that I experienced at One Young World, which is one of the largest conferences that represents almost every country. I think it's the second most international event in the world. And we had Schwarzman Scholar ambassadors there. We had some representatives at the Schwarzman at the One Young World who were back there, you know, back in their communities and countries, do some amazing jobs. And even with some of them, it was a great surprise because we were not even expecting to see each other. And then it was great that we ended up being in one place and kind of presenting and sharing the ideas and getting the feedback and bringing it back to our countries. But also from the program perspective, you know, every time when I would come to New York, for example, or even it was a great experience of when I was in Web Summit in Portugal, and Steve Schwarzman was there, and with all the crazy schedule and how busy he is, I asked, you know, I wrote him an email saying, Mr. Schwarzman, can they have 5 minutes just to say hi? And he replied, and we had a great conversation about his book that he just launched recently. So I think this approachability of everyone on different levels, and also in China and everywhere, wherever I went, I've met so many Schwarzman scholars and alums, and it feels this amazing spirit of family. And anytime when someone reaches out personally to me, and the moment when I realize it's one of the Schwarzmans, either current scholars or future scholars or the alums, it's kind of this like very amazing feeling of as if like my brother reached out to me, and I kind of I'm very happy to talk to them and, you know, hang out with them. It's been really great from that perspective.
Terrific. Thank you so much for that reflection. And I hope the viewees are getting a sense that even though the program is 11 months in duration, this mission is lifelong. And with every class that we admit and graduate, you get that family expansion, which again, it makes you swell with pride. So really fantastic. Thank you for that reflection. I'm going to ask Danai now to bring in her purview, because I think one of the exciting things about our program is how to think about how alum are serving our mission. And so there are lots of different experiences that Danai is able to share, both on the participant side, but also being a core part of our selectors for this amazing program. So Danai, go ahead.
Cool. Thanks, Christian. I think going into the program, one of the many things I was concerned about was, how am I going to be able to stay a relevant part of this community and be able to still engage with the number of things that will be happening, especially because going in, I always knew I was going back to the African continent. So I wanted to know how I would be able to still stay involved and still be able to add value to the community. And I will say, I think it was a very presumptuous worry, because I'm more engaged than ever. So there are a number of things that I've been involved in within the community, and one of which is the biggest highlight for me is taking part in selecting scholars. So for the very first time last year, a number of us were invited to support with the selection of students, and just taking part in that process was a truly eye-opening experience, because it was a different switch where initially I was the one who was being assessed to see if I'm a fit for the program. And so now I had to switch gears and see how I can be assessing others to see the value they would bring into the community. So that was a very humbling moment for me. And I'm really excited to see the scope of that growth. And then we've actually now extended that bit to think about how do we take part and brainstorm and problem solve together to figure out how we can recruit. Because one of the biggest things, I think the recurring themes that we've heard from everyone here is that spirit of community, which literally means that most of the community that we're hoping to tap into for the Schwarzman, for the growth of the Schwarzman network, will largely come from a number of the alumni community. So just a week or so ago, we were taking part in a problem solving and brainstorming exercise to figure out how do we strategize and grow our recruitment channels and enhance that system that's already working. So that's been a great experience for me, having to work with a number of cohort members, some I haven't even met yet, but just that feeling of familiarity around the program. And then I guess another thing for me that's really exciting is just still having that depth in the learning. So when I joined the community, I really wanted to learn a bit more about China and how I could use that information in my day-to-day life as I go back to the continent in development work. And then I still get to be a part of that as I attend a lot of alumni events. So to date, I've been fortunate enough to attend 2 alumni events. One of them was mainly a deep dive in Beijing on China, a China deep dive. But another one was one that we attended in 2018, which was in Oxford. And one of the things I appreciated is that it's not only leveraging our currently existing Schwarzman community, but also leveraging the Rhodes community. And then what's super important for me there is thinking about how at the end of it, we may all be diverse in thinking, in background, in where we're coming from, but at the end of it all, we're all aligned by this common mission around how can we make impact in our day-to-day lives, whether we choose to work in the public sector or whether you choose to work in consulting. At the end of it, we all have a yearning to make that difference. So one of the things I appreciate about those sessions is you're still having that rigor and that ability to brainstorm and have meaningful engagement, thought-provoking engagement that is all centered around your values. At the end of it, you're going back to your values, your ethics, what are the things that matter to you, and how do you enhance yourself in order to make a difference in the world. So if I would sum up my experience, I would say definitely the alumni network has done a good job of making me still stay connected to the program and actually support other members of my community. When I think about it, even from a more informal personal development side, is I've had a number of colleagues who have I've managed to help tap into doing a little bit more development, be it at African Leadership University or the African Leadership Academy, but they tap into and they're also exploring different career paths that they would not have otherwise explored if they didn't have somebody to sort of give them a step in the right direction. So truly appreciate all the work that we've been doing. But then I guess I would tie it up and say that it's all enshrined in ownership at the end of the day. You have to truly want to engage and want to contribute and want to connect with others and just come at it from best intentions.
Goosebumps. Thank you. I'm floored again by the reflections of our scholars. It's clear that this program is a convener, not just to Beijing and not just to China, but conferences from around the world, to spaces of community wherever the scholars go. And so when you think about how they link up to make this network of networks, that's where you make and adjust to crises like we're seeing. Even with the pandemic, you don't have to be in person to be able to cultivate that kind of learning and inspiration. I want to throw it back to what Debbie had said in her remarks about service, because I know Minh has a really core role in thinking about this Schwarzman Scholars Serve initiative. So Minh, if you can reflect on that and just anything else on your mind when it comes to listening to your fellow alum here, be able to share their experiences. Go ahead.
Sure, thank you, Christian. So I just want to touch upon, because the alumni who talked just now, has already touched upon so many different aspects. I think one of the parts that I participate the most is the Surf project. So it's called the Schwarzman Surf project. So every October is the Surf month, and the alumni around the world, they will be arranging different surf day sort of activity. And so last year it was our inaugural year of surf day, and we chose a really nice fall day in Beijing. And then we, the alumni across four cohorts, even the students who are still in the college, the current scholars, they're invited to participate in this surf day. It's called plogging. So basically, you want to run, and then while you run, you pick up garbages and all that. And we went to the hutongs and then just kind of picked up garbages. And it's a really amazing experience, not only because of the sheer volume of the garbage that we were able to pick up, but also the whole impact that we have on people's mindset. So when we're running around the hutongs and people were like, they're curious, they're wondering what we do, and then they ask, who are you guys? And then we're like, okay, we're from Tsinghua University, and we're the Schwarzman scholars, and we have the T-shirt on us, and they were, oh wow. So yeah, I mean, some of the parents even told their child, and they said, hey, look at the Gege Jie, the students, they're doing a great thing. And you shouldn't kind of throw any garbage in the future. And the child was like, oh wow, yeah, I should not do that. So I think there's definitely more than just the action itself. I think it's about what the program represents is that we want to serve the society and we want to be a role model, and that leads to, I think, 3 aha moments that I have. So one aha moment is that because the program is about not only about receiving things, but also giving things to society. So when the COVID thing hit the world, and I realized in the group chat that we have in the platform, and people are talking about this virus, and because we have so many different scholars from different parts of the world, and some of them are in key position in a leading role in those initiatives. Some of our scholars are helping their government to procure life-saving ventilators, because that scholar, he is viewed as a bridge between his own country and China. And now, the whole world is trying to get those ventilators from China. And that's why, the scholars are, a lot of them, because of this program, they're, and also their brilliant, capability, and also their background, they're put into central positions. So suddenly this group becomes like a pretty impactful group, like people from different countries trying to procure from China, and we have Chinese scholars. We have so many people who have a lot of connections, and which made a lot of things happen. And we have a scholar from India who's running he called it the Coronathon. So basically, it's like a hackathon where there's a bunch of really brilliant Indian engineers. They're trying to come up with innovative ways to come up with technology to fight the virus. So that's a moment I realized, wow, so this is like, we're talking about what the mission of the program is to, when facing global challenge, we the global leader who shape how, to drive how the world is going to. And I'm seeing it happen just 1 year after my graduation. So this is a really big aha moment for me. And also another thing I want to mention is that we are Schwarzman Scholars alumni. We also Tsinghua University alumni, because Schwarzman College is a part of Tsinghua. It's a college of Tsinghua University. So Tsinghua is a huge university, has thousands of hundreds of alumni each year, and it's very super powerful alumni network. It's when people. So my experience is that when people know that you went to Tsinghua, they'll be like, wow, you're the pillar of the society, of Chinese society. They're like, you must be, doing something important or something. So there's a lot of Tsinghua alumni are in pretty central positions, like presidents. For those of you who don't know, President Xi and President Hu, they're both Tsinghua alumni, and there's so many other top scientists and also musicians, and so many people in China. They went to Tsinghua University, and also Tsinghua University has a lot of alumni in the US, in Europe, in so many places around the world. There's a huge Tsinghua Alumni Association in New York and in Silicon Valley, and they're doing a good job. So being part of that network is also super invaluable.
Wow, thank you so much for your reflection, man. And again, when zooming out to the 10,000 foot level and just looking at what the things that you've shared and this thing that we're building is really incredible. And I'm just so warmed that from immediate responses to challenges given COVID-19 to long-term vision stuff about what everyone's calling is, it's clear that we're all on the spectrum and that we're all finding ways to clarify what that voice looks like. And even as we start to change our roles and what we do evolves, it's very apparent that we're all driven by the same need to build something that's going to make the world a better place. So that's really fantastic. Well, wow, the hour is speeding on by, but I want to launch into some general Q&A because I think for those who have registered, they've submitted a lot of good questions. And the first one that I'm going to throw is to those members who've graduated from the inaugural class. And this is a question about trust. We got a couple questions about relationship building, and I think they're related. I'm going to put trust on the axis of time and think about, since you're the furthest away from when you were at Schwarzman College in Beijing, what have been ways in which you were able to effectively build trust since you've graduated from the program? And then also the practice of seeking trustworthy colleagues. And this was actually a current scholar who was asking this question. So Danai, I'm going to have you lead off with that one, and then we'll go to Erza.
Cool. Thanks for that. I will say that one of the things that I had to learn going into the program, especially when you're in a confined space with a number of people, is that there's a tendency that there's a probability that emotions may run high and sometimes things get said. But one of the biggest lessons I've had to learn over time is that you need to always assume good intentions. People don't come from a bad place. So try to assume good intentions and approach everybody with just an openness and a willingness to get to know them, unless otherwise, because often people have preconceived notions about what they think about somebody. So for me, those would be the two things that I think are very helpful for me in building trust. Is just I assume best intentions and I approach it with openness, and I'm always happy to get to know someone. And then I think there's also something to be said about the way the program itself has run, in that we've created a space where even if you don't know someone, you always are welcome and open to reach out to someone, and they will almost always be wanting to help you. So just having that knowledge at the back of your mind that I am a part of a wider community beyond myself just makes it easier for you to reach out and connect with people, because they will be willing to help you.
Amazing. And Erza, what your response and add on to that?
Just to add up on the nice, I absolutely agree. Especially when you're in that college, and we had 112 people, I think, there, and you have only 10 or 11 months, and you have this FOMO, fear of missing out, that you want to get to know everyone, but then it kind of gets balanced out because you're thinking that, okay, I want to also get to know people on a deeper level. So that's where the trust comes in. And in my mind, I always associated Schwarzman Scholars program as a toolbox. So basically, the program gives you everything, and you can just pick whatever you need from there. And for me, throughout the 1 year there, talking about trust, for example, I had a company which I created with one of my other Schwarzman scholars, for example. Then a lot of people started relationships while they were there. A number of them are going on. So there are those different levels of the trust and understanding and the chemistry that was there. And I think as an advice, though, one thing which I saw that really makes people build trust was traveling. So while traveling in smaller groups and overcoming some various difficulties or challenges, or also enjoying amazing moments, you really build that very, very deep trust in each other.
Amazing. And I think that's one of the things that a lot of alumni rave about, is the proximity to walking in the shoes of others. You on a daily basis are disrupting your set of assumptions when you think of your problems, and then you have a new reference point on what are their problems. And then you essentially end the program knowing what are important issues to different people from around the world. And so if anything, this is a convener of like global solidarity, where you can start to find ways in which how that then influences all of your post-program goals. And so there was another bucket of questions that were about how has this program shaped, and I'm going to invite both Maddie and Minh to reflect on this. How has this shaped your journey post-program on navigating things like your career and navigating things like family and all these different things that are part of the DNA of being a leader, these different influences and inputs. So Maddie, how about you start off on how has Schwarzman affected your post-program ideas or trajectory?
Sure. So it's played a huge role, I think, in where I went after the program and where I'll still be going in the future. And I think I just want to speak that I'm speaking from the perspective of somebody who did Schwarzman right after I graduated from college. So with I don't know if it's a disclaimer, but kind of the, just putting it out there that the experience is different depending on, maybe the age you go in or the work experience that you've had before. And, and I think we've all said too, what you want to get out of the program really plays a role in what you should look for kind of going in, the goals that you set. And I think for everyone who's applying, that's my advice. And when it comes to thinking about career after the program, that's my advice as well. And so I think for me, when I graduated from Schwarzman, and this for me was, I was looking for, the first job that I would have out of undergrad. So I was looking to continue my engagement with China. I was one of the people who had studied Chinese, studied the US-China relationship prior to the program. So I was really looking for an opportunity to kind of deepen my engagement in that field. And for me, Schwarzman provided an incredible opportunity, and that was the connection with other partner organizations. And so there's some really unique opportunities only available to Schwarzman scholars through partnerships at the National Committee on US-China Relations, the Wilson Center, Chatham House in the UK. These are just a few. And I'm sure there's a webinar and career kind of focused opportunities, so I won't get too much into that, but I will just say that having the Schwarzman team kind of in my court and having this kind of unique position really allowed myself to kind of get a foot in the door where at an organization, that I might not have been exposed to prior. And so I did that fellowship for a year, and I stayed at the National Committee beyond that in a full-time role as a program officer. And so that allowed me to really get to know the organization and see what they were doing and get to play a role in it. And that was a really powerful experience for me. And then I would just say too, the process by which I've been applying to graduate school, the Schwarzman Scholars Network has played a huge role. I've had so many conversations with people who have gone through the process, who are going through the process, who are at schools that I've been looking at, and who have given me advice in that regard. So I've really tapped into that and benefited from their expertise throughout.
Terrific. Thank you so much. And that answer was so good. You had bells celebrating and ringing their praises in the background.
The grandfather clock.
Okay. Minh, what else would you like to add as far as how did the program change your outlook on navigating your career?
Sure. Thank you, Christian. I think there's so many, when I think about what, how I was shaped by this program, there's so many things I thought of. And I think probably going to this program is the best decision I've ever made. It changed my life in many ways. First of all, I think as a young professional, because I worked for 3 years before the program, so I've done some consulting, I've done some startup. I think I'm at a point where I want to I want to have a year of sort of to widen my perspective and my experience, because I believe before when I was working, I think it's a deepening experience where I train myself to be a more professional consultant and then get maybe better in analytics and things like that. And going to Schwarzman is definitely really widening experience. I got the chance to take classes that I've never taken before. For example, I took the international relations class, where I've never taken anything like that. I was a STEM major back in college, so that international relations is really new to me. And then I got the chance to see to listen to a lot of new perspectives and students to share their ideas, and also professors from really prestigious universities coming in, and it's just a really widened experience. I've tried so many things. I've done. There's a public speaking workshop. I think public speaking was maybe the last thing I wanted to do at the time, and I challenged myself that year. And then just there's a debating society where I participated in that to debate with students on various issues. So that's that. And second point, how it shaped my experience is I got a better understanding of myself and my country, because like I said, I went to the U.S. when I was a college student. So I think when I thought I understood China, but actually I did not understand much, because I had no idea how the economy after 30 years, 40 years of development becomes what it is right now. And then through a class called Rising China, it basically tells us why China got to today right now, and how actually I found out that my hometown is actually at the forefront of a really important reform at the time. It's around township and village enterprises, and these are the sort of organization that pop up at the time that that drove the private sector to grow. And I did not know that, but I was from there. So this is like discovering. It's a really amazing self-discovery, and also throughout the program, because like people said, it's a really there's so many things going on, and I think it requires really good time management skills. And and with time management, basically, with so many potential things you can do, you need to prioritize. But before you can prioritize, you need to understand what you really want. After you understand you really want, then you can see, okay, so this is what I would love to give up, but I need to pursue that. So I think that the program pushed me to a point where I need to really be clear with what I want to do, and what I'm willing to compromise. So that's a surprise, but it really helps me to understand myself and my career path. And also, the venture capital that I'm working with now, the founder of it is the mentor of the program. So this kind of really this is provided, all these resources are provided by the program. So I'm extremely grateful for the Schwarzman program from many perspectives.
Thank you so much, Minh. And as I start to look at the clock and where we're at almost 5 minutes to the hour, I will throw a final question to the scholars, but I actually want to pause to ask Debbie, when we look at the program where it is since when we started working on the program, you know, what are your reactions to what our alumni scholars have been able to share with you? So Debbie?
Well, thanks, Christian. I don't want to take time from them because really what I hear from each and every one of them is an inspiration. And we knew that we had something special. The process for evaluating people on the way in is pretty arduous. But what has come out on the other side has been probably more than I would have expected and makes me feel pride every day. In part that if you look, we have New York, London, Mauritius, China. They are giving up part of their time to be here and to encourage people to share in the experience that they had. But it's what they do for us, but what they do for each other, which you have heard through this call. So every day I continue to be amazed, and the deep sense of pride that I have, it gets reinforced every time a conversation like this takes place. So I'm glad to be here.
And so for my final question for the scholar alum here, there was a bucket of questions that were asking about ways in which alumni support other alumni. And so looking at it holistically, the emotional support, the career support, the academic and intellectual support. So in your final thoughts to the viewers today, what would you say is, if you got anyone who's sitting on the fence and thinking imposter syndrome, like, oh, I'm not going to get it, what advice would you offer, knowing what you know now as an alumnus who helps other alumni? What is something that you would say to that person to convince them to look into this program, to take it seriously, and to think about how to take the elements of their leadership narrative and ride a crescendo that will let them get admitted to this kind of program? We're going to start off with Danai first on that.
I guess what comes to mind for me is, I know it looks a bit daunting when you're looking at the application website and they're asking all these what sound like really hard questions about your journey and where you've been. But at the core of it, it's just asking for you to speak your truth. So know who you are, know the things that matter to you, what are your values and what are the things that guide your story, and be true to those. One of the things that really come out from this application process is the thing around authenticity, because it requires you to be very consistent around your narrative. So you need to pick the things that matter to you and be clear on what those are and do a good job of putting them forward. So you need to believe in them and they need to make sense to you before you can say them out to the world, regardless of what other people have done. Because at the end of the day, a leadership journey is a personal one.
Terrific. Erza, in less than a minute.
Absolutely. So yeah, I think, so I was a young professional, so I worked for quite a long time before that. And when I was applying, you know, there's always some stuff, there's always some routine at work, and I was always, you know, delaying it. And to be honest, I applied at the very last day of the before the deadline. And thanks that I did. And I was thinking about it, and there's no downside, right? So if you have a story, as Danai mentioned, it's important to have your story and to be yourself. And then you apply, and what's the worst case scenario? You just don't get in, and then you try it next year, hopefully. And one thing which I was just wanted to kind of leave with is that I think it was the best experience. I'm so glad that I changed my career totally from finance, from banking to energy. And if there was another chance to be a Schwarzman scholar for the second time and go back to China and be there for 1 year, I would totally apply and go and do that. Thank you.
Amazing. All right, Maddie, in 30 seconds.
Sure. Yeah, I would just second that everything that Danai said, and I really think that it's, you know, your uniqueness and the differences that stand out in the application process, but also stand out when you're in the college and building kind of a well-rounded cohort too. And those are the things that your classmates will embrace. And then I guess one more thing too is just know what your goals are with going into the program. If you can't, if you're applying, just be able to articulate what your goals are for doing the program clearly and succinctly, and that will, in a compelling, authentic way. And I think that will certainly come through.
And then 10 seconds for Minh. Bring us home.
Yeah, I just use one second. So I think on a higher level, I think just be yourself, enjoy the process, and you'll be fine.
Amazing. And with that, a very heartfelt thanks on behalf of the Schwarzman Education Foundation to both the alumni scholars and to the team that is listening far and wide. it's clear that the aperture of the kinds of people that we're trying to bring in the network is going to be widened. And as you are all representing different continents in the world, I think that's really a warming thing. Now, I know for the viewers, we weren't able to get to many of your admissions and eligibility related questions, so please visit us on our website, sign up for the next webinar, and engage, because we, of course, want to help you put your best foot forward. And if you're not recognizing the ways to ask for help, then that's something that that is, I think, indicative of this whole process of self-excavation. So we want to make sure that the leaders that we bring into this program are going to be extra solicitous of inviting different perspectives and inputs, so that in their ascendancy to leadership, they're going to find ways to involve a planet that has a lot more people than just themselves. So when you're thinking about your call to action, think about what is purpose that's bigger than who you are, and what are the ways in which you can prove that you are going to get that goal. And we're excited to learn more about that through the stories that you submit. So with that, I'll end the webinar, and thank you again so very much. Everyone have a great time wherever you are in the world, and we'll see you pretty soon. All right, take care, everyone. Thank you.